Welcome back. And thanks for joining us here at Live Now from Fox. I'm your host, Carl Lahada. It's about 3:15 here on the West Coast, 6:15 over on the East Coast. And for the last couple of hours, we've been really focused on some top political headlines. But now I'd like to turn our attention to another one of the big stories that we had been covering the past several days. And that is, of course, Helene. Here's a tweet from the governor of North Carolina, Roy Cooper. It says this: search and rescue operations remain underway across western North Carolina, and supplies are being brought into the region by air. Visit readync.gov for information on local conditions, shelters, traffic, power outages, and resources. Now, we know that in North Carolina, more than 200 people have been rescued from floodwaters following Helene's torrential rains. North Carolina search and rescue teams are being bolstered by teams from 19 states and 3 federal teams. Many areas in the mountains received more than 10 inches and as much as 29 inches of rain, causing catastrophic flooding. High winds gusting up to hurricane strength also brought down trees, power lines, and cell towers across the region. More than 700,000 people remain without power as of this morning, and utility crews are responding from across the country for immediate restoration and repair efforts. 16 shelters housed approximately 1,100 residents last night. Now, earlier today, I did have a chance to speak with the acting director of response and recovery at FEMA. Here's what he had to say about the relief and recovery down there in North Carolina. Remain underway in communities across western North Carolina, and supplies are being brought into the region by air following the devastating impacts from Tropical Storm Helene. More than 200 people have been rescued from floodwaters in North Carolina following Helene's torrential rains. And North Carolina search and rescue teams are being bolstered by teams from 19 states and 3 federal teams. Here to discuss a bit more on this relief and recovery, we are joined by Keith Turi. He is the acting director of response and recovery at FEMA. Keith, good to see you, and thanks for joining us. I know it's very busy right now. So let's just start with this. Biden approving, of course, an emergency disaster declaration on Thursday. Now, what does that do when it comes to support for the region?
Yeah, those emergency declarations give us the ability to bring in federal resources, and as some of the teams that you just mentioned a minute ago, to support our state and local partners in their response. Obviously, the first line of defense in these responses is going to be state and local assets that are on the ground. But disasters like this, they're going to need help from the federal government. So that gives us the ability to bring in our incident management assistance teams, to bring in the search and rescue teams that you mentioned, and also teams from our partners at the Army Corps of Engineers for power restoration or Health and Human Services to be able to support healthcare facilities in the area. So that emergency declaration unlocks that federal assistance, and we do that in advance of the storm so that we can make sure that those state and local partners have whatever they need when they need it.
So tell us, Keith, are FEMA teams on the ground right now, and what are they seeing in terms of some of the recovery that still awaits for all those communities?
Yeah, we have staff that have been embedded in North Carolina, South Carolina, and all the impacted states from before the disasters. Some of them are in the state EOC, some of them are out in the counties that are impacted. And as you've probably seen in the images, particularly in Western North Carolina, the impacts are severe. Some of the rainfall amounts and the flooding they saw is historic and has had some significant impacts on a number of areas out in Western North Carolina. The recovery is going to take a long time. We're still in that phase, though, where we're focused on life safety. We need to make sure, one, that make sure everyone is safe. And they also heed the issues with the hazards that are going to continue. Floodwaters are still high. There are still going to be roads that are impassable. Some roads have washed out. Power is out. And so it's really important that people listen to their state and local officials to stay safe. And then we'll transition into a recovery phase in the coming days.
Yeah, just taking a look here at some of the footage that we have from down there in North Carolina, you can see that flooding very intense. Keith, what's going to be happening over the next several days and next week? What are the steps that will be taken?
Yeah. First things first is going to be make sure we get those community lifelines back up. So that's power, water, make sure those essential utilities that able to make sure that the community can function are getting back up. People will be, unfortunately, those that are displaced will be in shelters, make sure they have a safe place to stay. And then as we do damage assessments with our state and local partners, we'll be able to turn on other types of assistance that can help individuals and communities that are impacted. It's going to be a long road. Again, the next week is really going to be about stabilizing the situation, make sure everyone's safe, making sure that those lifelines are stable, and then we'll begin to move into the recovery process, which will unfortunately be a very long road for some of these impacted communities.
Speaking of that long road and some of that historic flooding that we did see in North Carolina, talk to us a little bit about the state's infrastructure. Was it built to handle things like this, or are there some holes in there that can make it difficult when it comes to recovery in the future?
Well, I think as we're seeing more frequent and more intense storms, it's difficult for almost any infrastructure to handle that. The rainfall we saw in Western North Carolina really was historic, areas of over 15 inches of rain. It's hard for that for the infrastructure to be able to be built. One of the things we really do need to focus on moving forward is making sure we build our infrastructure in a way that is resilient and that can withstand these increasing hazards that we're seeing. That'll be something we work with the state on in the weeks and months to come. But right now, again, we're focused still on that immediate life safety recovery phase that we're currently in.
Something else that we have been monitoring is the fact that a lot of power has been lost in these communities. Also, cell phone service is down. So, how does FEMA work under these conditions?
Yeah, a couple things. One, we have a capability that we can bring in for emergency communications, not just for us, but to help support first responders and to help support those local officials, make sure that they can communicate. There's a couple different ways we can do that, bringing in resources that can help provide cell service or radios. So we'll help do that. And then our partners across the federal family are working with the cell carriers to make sure that anything that they need to get those services back up as quickly as possible, we can facilitate that, whether that be transportation or power or whatnot. So communications is critically important. And as a coordinator, we play an important role in helping get those services back up and running.
Finally, Keith, there are a lot of folks across the southeastern U.S. that are really dealing with some heavy destruction, a lot of damage. What would be your advice to them as we move forward with recovery?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, our hearts go out to those that are impacted. We know many of these communities are reeling today, and some of them have been impacted by multiple storms and multiple hazards over the last number of months and years. And so, one, we just want to make sure stay safe and check on your neighbors, check on your family members, make sure everyone is in a safe place. If you did have damage, we recommend document that damage, take pictures. Make sure you can get a good accounting of what happened. As we move forward, additional forms of assistance may become available, and that's going to be important. But right now, it's again make sure everyone stays safe. Recognize it's going to be a long road ahead, and FEMA is going to be with these communities throughout that process.
Keith Turi, the Acting Director of Response and Recovery with FEMA, we appreciate your time here at Live Now from Fox. Take care.